Welcome back to another SuperCoach video with me, JD. Today, you are joining me for a Rate My Team session. So this is where I go through you, the viewers, teams. I review them, rate them, give them my feedback, and we kind of go from there. If you missed out on this one and you'd like to get involved in the future, make sure you're following me on Twitter at Jackson Dave. You can find that in the links below. Or if you join the Fantasy Take TV Discord, I also gave members there a chance to submit teams. And I think I'm going to try and cap this at an hour and just see how many teams I can kind of get through. Hopefully it's all of them, but you know, I think that's like a reasonable amount of time to subject myself to this, especially because I think by the end we'll start seeing a lot of the same teams, because I have a feeling I've got a lot of smart viewers been listening to some great advice so far, and we won't have too many out there picks, but let's see what happens. So starting with Tranquil Cam's team here, Treat You Right. And let's just have a look at this. So Lloyd, short haul, Ridley down back, all very strong picks. And nothing really too wrong here with the rookies either. So nothing wrong with this defense at all. Looking at the midfield, so 5 primo mids. A lot of discussion over whether 4 or 5 is right at the moment. This has gone the 5 route. So I'm thinking if we've got 4 premium defenders and then 5 premium mids, we're going to be short down front. But let's just have a look through. And then, yeah, paid up for rookies in the middle here. So Horn Francis, Hobbs, Dacos, Clark. Yeah, those all look fine. And I have no problems with these premium picks either. I think if you're going to drop one of the big 4, Oliver is the one I would drop. So this looks fine to me. The Ruck combo is the one that I prefer at the moment, even through to the rookie Ruck. Although Jack Hayes, who's recently signed for the Saints, could be the one that surpasses, I think it's Sam Hayes for Port if he gets games. And then looking at the forward line, yes, this is where we have problems. So Dunkley, Cogs, and Hollands, all great picks. But I think, unfortunately, we're going to end up being a little bit too thin here. So DeConning and Skinner both look like they're going to be options that get games this year at this point in time, and maybe even Comben will as well. But I'm not sure that any of these are actual on-field options. Skinner potentially could be if he gets that intercepting role at Port. Comben, I think, is going to be playing more forward than Ruck if he gets games, although that's always difficult. Like, Port's tall situation is going to be somewhat interesting because they've got Goldie. They just got Coleman Jones, CCJ. That's why people just say CCJ in the offseason. And they've got Comben. And also, I saw reports say that Cherry was pushing, staking his claim for a spot as well. So Comben, I think, is both risky in terms of, like, do we actually get him as an option? And then even if we get him, is he going to score well? And Motlop, I don't think, particularly good bench cover here. So my feedback for this team would be, I think you're probably going to have to give up either one defender or one midfielder, one of your premiums up here, and then shore up that forward line by putting in probably another premium at F2. So it'll be someone like a Heaney or a DeGoey or a Butters or a Taron Thomas. They've all been getting very glowing reports, which is scary how many of these potential like premium options in the forward line there are. And then, you can pick up someone like a Finn McRae, for example, if you downgrade in the midfield, or like a Flynn Perez from North in the back line as your rookie option. And then, yeah, shore up this forward line just because, I think you want Hollands as your F6. Although you've got 150k, so what you could actually already get one of these, like a Kerno type, who I like. I know that's not everyone's preference, but someone like that already. Or with 270k, you can actually get them to almost like a Rayner, which a lot of people like, or a Coleman, who I'd probably prefer. The goal would be figuring out how you can maybe sacrifice just the one of these and get Hollands to F6 and then kind of bulk out this forward line. But otherwise, this looks like a really solid team. I like pretty much everything outside of the forward line. And it's even the picks in the forward line are good. It's just, I think, DeConning and Skinner are probably more like bench options and on-field options. And then that just means that you're a little bit weak up front and you're going to leak points. All right, Shay it again. So Griffy, let's have a look here. So the defenders down back, if I was going for premium defenders, this would probably be my preferred 4 at the moment. I'm quite high on Dawson going inside, so I really like this as a pick. And then I go back and forth on which one of Hall and Lloyd I'd prefer more. Lloyd's kind of got that stability and history of scoring, where Hall has the upside. So yeah, that one's always a little bit tough. And then Whitfield, I love, he's locked for me. Let's see what's going on with rookies up here. So, like, I guess these are just placeholders, but I'm not sure we get Kelly, or if we do, he's a forward. Gould is like the permittees. I don't know if he actually gets games. I think someone like Skinner is probably more likely, but yeah, this is fine. They're placeholders. They're the right price. In the midfield, so 4 mids here rather than the 5 we saw in the last one, which means you should have a more built-out forward line, which we'll go to in a second. And then, yep, McRae and Steele. If I'm just picking 2 of these, is my preferred 1-2 combo, although I have been getting more and more love for Took and wondering, like, could I play him over a McRae? Steele's the one that I won't move from. And then Mitchell and Neil are the 2 kind of cheaper ones that I like. And then once again, your Horn Francis, Dacos, Downey. Griff, what are you doing? Downey. I don't think he's been talked about as getting games. I guess this is just another placeholder, but you haven't got much cash. You can't turn him into a Hobbs or a Erasmus or something like that. And then Johnson is, like, once again a placeholder, but one you'll have to move away from just because he's unlikely to play round 1 with injuries. The ruck line, very solid. And then in your forwards here, so Dunkley and Heaney, I like. Cogs, McGuinness, Hollands, I like. Like McGuinness at F5, if he gets games, is probably okay. Duncan is the option here that I would probably move away from. I think the scoring upside is there, but with his age and injury history, it's someone I'm pretty worried about in the limited trade formats like SuperCoach. I'd probably prefer someone like one of the cheap options really that have got the upside. But I could see Duncan working out. I don't know. It feels like this is one of your homer picks that I'm not going to persuade you otherwise on. But yeah, it's not someone I'm really considering. All right. Next, we've got Rambo's team. So down back, Lloyd, Dawson, Ridley, that all looks fine. I think missing out on Whitfield is a mistake, but I know a lot of people have been burnt by him and don't trust his durability. That's cool. Get that. Steen is like a interesting, more expensive option here. I'm not like, it's actually one I'd have to research, because I think the only more expensive ones that I've looked at were like Zach Reed from Essendon, who is injured now anyway and like won't be playing, or Mitch Hinge at Adelaide, who's like 183-ish K. But like, this isn't a bad placeholder. I have no idea if this is a good pick or not. And then Sin, so while I was quite high on him and it was reported that he was training with the midfield group, I've also heard reports that it's unlikely he's playing round 1 because he needs to develop his body more. So like mixed messages on that. So he's one that I've taken out for now instead of and put in like a Chesser or a from West Coast or a Kemp from Carlton as a placeholder, but that's fine. And then like Kelly and O'Driscoll are fine as placeholders. The midfield, so McRae, Steele, Miller, Oliver. So this is 3 and 4. So we should have a pretty stacked forward line is what I'm getting out of that. And gone all the big dogs, which is... I get why people are doing it, because all of them seem like good options and none of them seem like they're going to lose a lot of money. But I think the only problem with these is like, you're not going to get value out of any of them. I think the best case scenario is that they kind of hover around their price and no one else really gets them at a big discount, but it's not like you get any upside out of them. And that's where I'd be trying to find someone like a Neil, a Walsh, or a Tom Mitchell, for example, or you could even look at some of the pods like a Parish or a Petraka that you actually think has that 50k upside or value. That's something that's more conducive to being a winning pick. I guess if you just play for league, then taking the big dogs is fine, but I think for overall, this probably limits your upside. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, it's a lot. And then the rest of the rookies, they all look fine. Actually paid up for a lot of them here, which is very nice. Give you a lot of flexibility. I think Stevens from the Swans is the only other expensive one that looks like it might be a serious consideration. And obviously, McRae from Collingwood is like a potentially instead of Horn Francis, depending on what happens. The Rucks, so Darcy and Grundy, my preferred 1-2 once again. And then Bruce as an R3, which is something that I, like in my very first team, I'm not sure if I had put a video out with Bruce at R3, but something I was very heavily considering. I desperately want a playing ruck this year at R3, desperately. And I think the COVID rules, like what's happening with COVID, makes it even more important. Because if someone like Darcy goes out for a week, which I think of all the teams, Freo and West Coast, the two most likely to have these types of COVID outs because of the bubble and the fact it hasn't spread through their teams and all this type of stuff. There may be problems with like border issues and teams getting in and out or whatever it may be. So I really want that R3 playing to be able to cover any COVID issues, and particularly Darcy, who I'm pretty set on starting. So if we don't get Hayes or whoever it is, and our only option at R3 is someone like a Bruce or a Max Lynch, I'm probably going to try and find a way to do this too. So I don't like Bruce as a pick, but I like the thinking behind Bruce being in there at R3. The reason why I don't love Bruce as a pick and why I wouldn't advocate for him on field is simply because he's firstly had lots of problems with his body. And then secondly, it doesn't even seem like he's the number one ruck locked in at GWS. They had great success with Flynn and another obvious name who I'm forgetting last year. Oh, that's bad. I hate it when memory does that. But yeah, it's like a three-way fight for whoever the ruck is, and it's not guaranteed to be Bruce. Or we could see what happened last year where Flynn was getting swapped with Mumford every other week, or Mumford would play 2 or 3 and then get rested and Flynn would play 1. And I think that's totally possible that they continue to do something like that. I don't think it's great for team chemistry to actually have that ruck swapping in and out, but I could see them continue to do something like that. And then the forward line, another Duncan lover. Another Duncan respecter in the chat has logged on, Mr. Rambo. Yeah, so I covered it already. Not my favorite pick. And then Taranto is actually another one that I'm not so high on. And the only reason, he's got great durability and he's got great scoring potential. But with Toby Green missing for the first 6 weeks, it really looks like Taranto is going to be one of the ones that plays more time forward as a result of that. Cogs could be the other one too, but we're getting Cogs at 260k. Oh, you're missing Cogs. Rambo, that is a must get. So let's just finish one thought train on Taranto. So Taranto, I think, is a good option throughout the year, but is someone that you pick up after those first 5 or 6 weeks when Toby Green returns, and then Taranto hopefully gets more CBAs, more mid-time, and you'll see him be available at a discounted price, and then you can kind of ride him on the back home, but not a pick that I would necessarily start with. And then, the big missing thing here is Cogs. Maybe you don't love him as an option, but even if he is playing a lot of forward time at 260k, his best 22, we know that his best position is in the midfield. It's definitely not forward. Like, of him and Taranto is the one that plays better forward. So I can't see them parking him there too much. And even when he has been parked forward, he can still score well enough to return value at the 260k. So I think that is a big miss not having him in the side at the moment. And I'd figure out how you can readjust things to get him in, whether that is something like downgrading Bruce to one of the Hayes for now and then upgrading in the forward line, moving Steen down in the back line to like a Chesser or a Kemp, or potentially looking at downgrading one of the premium mids that you've got. Although I like that setup that you currently have. I think that'd be the other option to try and free up some money. And with one of the other teams earlier, I think DeConning and Comben on field at F5 and F6 is going to leak you too many points early on. I'd be trying to push Hollands to F6 and then either have like a Kerno Cogs combo or a Cogs McGuinness combo in these two spots. So yeah, that's where I'd be looking to change things. But overall, great team. Yeah. Oh, actually, sorry. Speaking about freeing up cash, this is where downgrading one of these 4 premium mids to a slightly cheaper option would come in handy. So you go to someone like a Neil, it's nearly 100k or something, and that solves one of these forward problems almost instantly. Or if you're even going down to someone like a Titch or a Walsh, it's like 50k, and that kind of helps, especially if you're downgrading Bruce. So. All right, another Griff. This time it's Griffo the Hero. Welcome, Griffo the Hero. Let's have a look, break this team down. So defense, if you're going 3, I think there's nothing wrong with the 3 you've picked there. I think there's lots of great defense options this year. It kind of just comes down to the research you've done and your preference, and those 3 are perfectly fine. The rookies look pretty good. I'm not sure McDonough's going to get games for Essendon early, at least anyway. I think that's pretty unlikely. He's been training in the B team, and like Essendon's Matcham has been like best versus rest for the most part in 18 versus 18. And he's definitely in the rest part at the moment. And they still didn't have players in like Hind, and I think there was another like backman that was definitely best 22 ahead of him. So yeah, this is unlikely. I think that'll need to be a different pick in defense. In the midfield, there is a pod in here in Mills. So Mills is one that has not got a lot of discussion after a very big breakout last year. And to be honest, I understand why. Because the Achilles injury he's had, while it looks like he's healed from that, at least from all reports, those are ones that can linger. They can be career altering, and they are definitely an injury I try and avoid in my players. So when you've got options like Walsh at around the same price, a little bit more, or even Tom Mitchell, both of which seem to have better scoring and better durability. I know Titch missed a season with his leg, but otherwise he hasn't had a problem. Those are like my preferred picks in that range over someone like Mills. But yeah, otherwise like this, the rest of this is fine. The mids all look good. All these rookies look fine. I think maybe the only thing I'm looking at here is that having too many 102k rookies in your team at this point in the year does yourself no favors, because when teams come out and we only get one of them, you don't have the cash to fix this easily. So I would try and rejig your team around someone like a Dean being a Skinner or someone instead. So finding that extra 23k now, at least like knowing what that option would look like, because I think it's unlikely we get both Newland and Dean in round one. The Ruck combo, amazing. Another person living the Ruck dream. I love it. Well, the Rucks have been very easy to review so far. I'm sure someone will throw a spanner in the works at some point, but that's all good. And then forward line, Dunkley and Heaney, my preferred 1-2 combo at the moment, although I am getting tempted by some of these other options, but I think Heaney's a great choice. And then Rayner is one that I said was a bum pick earlier this week, just like Horn Francis. And in the last week, the amount of positive reports that have come out of Matchday Sims is scaring me. It is scaring me. I guess opinions can change. I can update mine. The only thing I'll say about Rayner is that Brisbane have been doing, like, once again, the best versus the rest. And he's been beating up on the rest in the midfield. I'm not sure it translates to AFL level for him, and I'm not sure he can accumulate like that at AFL level, especially coming off an ACL, but the reports are scary, so maybe he is a good pick. I have other preferred players over him at this range, but yep. And then Brody has had some good reports for Freo in the match. Actually, I've seen some bad, some positive, so like a bit of mix. My gut feel from reading them so far is that there are others ahead of him at the moment. I think he's unlikely to be best 22, or if he is, he'll be fringe, which means that he might get a couple of weeks up at the start and then be dropped round 3 or 4, which is a scary proposition for someone you're parking, 224k into. I prefer someone like Kono at the same or similar price. You bank a little bit of cash. And then Josh Shelley. So I think this is probably not a great pick for a rookie. Very talented player. I think he's someone that might be relevant in a few years' time when he builds the tank and moves from maybe more of a small forward to a midfielder. But from now, we're hearing that he is going to be a small forward. And for 185k, I just think that it's unlikely you're going to see him get into the mid 300s range. I think, who was it? Jimmy Rowe for the Crows last year, also playing small forward type role. He got to 300k if he held on to him quite late. And at a cheap price of 123k, that's absolutely fine. But for a Shelley, if you're starting at 184k, you're really only getting 120k at that point, which doesn't make that a great trade. Now, you might argue that Rochelle has more skill than someone like a Rowe and potentially could go higher than that. And look, that's a fair argument, but I guess Rowe was mature age and had the tank that Rochelle might not. So anyway, long story short, I think there might be better rookies in this, but it's not the worst placeholder to have there for now. But yeah, as we were talking about, like if we're freeing up cash to shore up these other rookies, Rochelle down to a McGuinness, or Brody down to a Kerno, and then that lets you kind of muck around with like Dean and Newland. But yeah, otherwise this team looks good. Mills isn't my favorite pod in the mids, but if you've got high belief, then back you up. Splash City 29 coming in next. So let's have a look. We've got another 4 premium defender setup, 5 in the mids, which means we'll be thin down forward for sure. Guessing it'll be a 12 primo team. So 4 defenders, we've talked about all these 4, like all of them as picks, can't fault them. The defenders all look good. Once again, I don't think McDonough is going to be an option for us in our starting benches, but nothing wrong with him as a placeholder for now. In the mids, we're looking through, and this is another big 4 midfield respecter right here, which makes me really worried about what I'm going to see in the forward line when I look down in a minute. I reckon we're going to have another team where F4 to, or maybe F5, F4 to 6, or F5 to 6 is going to be ugly. So I can already feel that one of my recommendations is most likely going to be drop whichever one you don't like the most. For me, that'd be Oliver to one of the cheaper options if you want to keep this 5 mid setup and then use that extra money in the forward line, but we'll see what happens. Or it might even be go down to 4 mids, drop one of them, and then shore up the forward line. And then the rookies here. So yeah, Dacos, Ward, Hobbs. This all looks fine. I think we might be forced into playing one of Horn, Francis, or McRae. If like it just sounds like one of them is probably going to be good enough. So maybe a little bit unders there. Rucks. Oh, perfect. And then Dunkley, Cogs, Kerno, all great options. Pedler. I think that's the first time I've seen Pedler this preseason. And Sarong probably hasn't been a pick since some of the early teams because I don't think he's going to get games. And look, you've done what I've been recommending a lot. You have already got Hollands at F6, but you haven't put in a good F4 or F5 to do it. So I think this is where the team, for mine, would need work figuring out how you actually bolster that forward line. So whether it is turning an Oliver into another forward primo, and then, maybe some mid-price action in the front as well. Yeah, like I'd be putting in an F2 at least, and then I'd be probably looking at another mid-price option. Oh, maybe not. I think maybe if you just get another premium and then have like a McGuinness in there, that might be sufficient. Otherwise, like all the premiums are good picks. It's just the structure, I think, is not going to land where we need it to at the moment. That could, of course, change. Structure does change based on the rookies. So we're kind of just reading the tea leaves a bit on the match reports and the sims we've got so far and kind of projecting from there. But that'll change as injuries and a whole bunch of other things happen. All right. So Ben Butcher, Lloyd Ridley Whitfield, great. Chesser, Tom Brown, one that I've seen mixed reports. Maybe he gets games early, not sure. And then Walker, I honestly don't know much about Walker. But fine as a placeholder, that could be a DeConning or a Skinner. In the midfield, McRae, Steele, Oliver, Walsh, Petrarca, Neil. It's a 6 premium midfield team. Whoa. And then Dacos, Erasmus, Roberts, Clark, Parker. And then we've got the first person that's swapped us up on us. This feels like a Demon fan. If we've got Gorn, Oliver, and Petrarca. And then the 102k loophole. I've already talked about this a bit, but yeah, I don't want a loophole. I want a playing Ruck. So I'd be trying to find up cash for that. And also, okay. There's a few things we can do here, Ben. All right, and then the forward line, let's have a look. Dunkley, Gresham, Cogs, Kerno, Pedler. I haven't seen Pedler in a team now, I've seen it twice. Come on, what's that about? Holland, Motlop, and Nankervis. Okay, so we've spoken about this at least once already, but having 4 102k players in your team, not great at this time of the year. You're not really doing yourself any favors. We're not going to get 4 102k players. That's just reality. So I would be trying to get that down to 1 at most, whether it's Parker or Dean. They're probably the ones that are most likely to get games at the moment. For your R3, I'd be looking for one that is going to play games this year, whether it's Hayes of either the Port or St Kilda varieties. I'm not sure if St Kilda Jack Hayes is in there yet, but that is where I'd be looking. Well, it's a stacked midfield. And then And like your forward line's really not that thin. It's actually kind of cool how you've made this work. So that's 3, 6, 11, 12 premiums and then 3 mid prices in the forward line. I don't hate where the thinking's at with this one. So the three demons players. So I've got a couple of problems with this. Without going into like the merits of individually whether or not I think they're good or not. Typically, when a team wins a premiership, they regress the next year. This is what generally has happened over a period of time. It's not always what happens. It's just on average what happens. And when teams regress in wins, you expect SuperCoach scoring to regress as well, as SuperCoach scores are positively associated with your team winning. Which makes sense, right? Like if your team's kicking more goals, possessing the ball more, you'd expect them to get a bigger share of that 3,300 SuperCoach points each week. So on average, if Melbourne is going to pull back in performance this year, I don't want to be overloading on Demons players, as I think there's a chance that they may be slightly overpriced. And this isn't even to say that like they could improve. Maybe all three could improve. It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's just not where I would play the averages. And I think the thing that Demons have going for them that most other premiership sides don't is they've retained the best 22 from the grand final, which is insane. Most other teams have at least a couple players poached or they have a retiree or whatever it is. But to be able to keep that core group together that's gone all the way, you build that consistency, that teamwork, that understanding of where each other's going to be. That is scary. Right? That is the stuff that could actually go, do you know what? Maybe they're the exception to the rule and they do take it to another level. And if that's where you want to place your bet and that's what you believe, then fine. That's just not what I'm comfortable with this year. Oliver is the one of the big four that I've been fading out of them, not because I don't think he's going to be a good option across the course here. He's someone I'm sure I'll look to get in, but of the big four, he's the one that tends to have the lowest floor, which means he's the one that we're most likely to get a cheaper point at some point throughout the year, most susceptible to a tag, these types of things. And this is like small knocks. Once again, I think he's a good pick. And then Petrarca, he's one that could break out again, and that's scary. Like he could go 130 and win a Brownlow this year. I get why people would want to pick him. His back end and his final series was nuts. Like, it was actually insane. Oh, yeah, that is one that, like, if you are looking for a pod midfielder, I don't mind starting him, but I'd probably back out of the Oliver pick. And then, yeah, like, if you really like Gorn and you don't want to go Darcy, then by all means, I definitely have Darcy ahead of Gorn at the moment. And I think with Jackson taking more ruck time, that is going to negatively affect Gorn's scoring. But it's going to be great for Demons overall, like to help Gorn kind of extend his career a little bit longer, stay healthier and fresher for finals campaigns, but also give Jackson that experience. Like that is going to be great stuff. But yeah, not great for SuperCoach. So to wrap it all up, I'd probably be getting rid of... Oh, and then finally, actually, sorry. Having 3 players from one team that are all premiums not only hurts your buys, but it's also going to hurt if there's any COVID problems, like a game gets cancelled this year, especially when 2 of them are on the same line as well. You're going to have to put like 2 rookies, and the second rookie may not even be a good one. So I think if you wanted to keep 2 Demons players and you really like Gorn and Petrarca, I'd get rid of Oliver. Or if you really liked Oliver and Gorn, I'd get rid of Petrarca. I probably wouldn't try and keep Oliver and Petrarca. I think it's like very high risk, but it could have good reward. But yeah, I like the thinking with the 6 mids. I just think that you're going to have to drop one of them. And maybe put F2 in as well. Get Pedler out of your side. And then you'll have a little bit of money to spread around. But if you get someone like a McRae or a Horn Francis in the mids, that'll be fine. Oh, the only other player I haven't talked about actually is Gresham. So Gresham was one I was pretty high on. I think the Saints need him in their midfield. I think he adds something different that no one else does. He has like speed and agility and skills and can like add that burst out of packs that I feel like St Kilda was missing in points last year. However, from the preseason reports, like this was honestly the week I moved him to my team. I started reading preseason reports that he was getting ice on his knee during training, wasn't completing full sessions. And for me, if he's coming off a fairly serious injury, his Achilles, which that's a career-altering potentially injury, and he's not able to complete a preseason, that is a big big red flag. I'd be moving off him to one of the other mid prices you like in the forward line. But thank you, Ben, for the more unique team. Not trying to rip on it. I like there's some like really interesting stuff you've done in here, but just some small things you need to fix up, and you'll have both a unique and a really solid team. All right. Sorry about that. Miriam, the cabbage cutters. All right, down back, Lloyd, Hall, Short, Whitfield. 4 great defenders. I am yet to see anyone put a foot wrong down back, and I think it's really hard to. I think there's only one pick that I'm like pretty anti at the moment that is somewhat popular, and we haven't seen him yet. Sin and Kemp is fine. Talked about Sin. I don't think he's likely for round 1 based on the latest reports, but perfectly fine as a placeholder. Moving on to the midfield, McRae, Steele, Titch, and Neil. I like those as 4 midfielders. They're probably my preferred 4 at the moment if I was just going into that 4 structure. Berry at M5, a pick that was popular early on. It feels like faded a little bit. We've seen mixed reports about Berry. Is he playing on a wing? Is he playing in the guts? Maybe he's doing both. What's that split? Does he almost have some forward time? And then you've got other players like Rayner that's staking his claim for more midfield time. I assume McCluggage probably wants to move into the inside a little bit as well. And then the only person I've heard actually getting out is Zorko and potentially going to half back. So how that plays out for Brisbane's midfield is very interesting, and one we're going to have to watch for the practice game. He could still be a good pick, but one that I've gone a little bit colder on since SuperCoach opened. The rest of the mids look fine. It looks like you've allocated enough cash there. They've all been paid up. Goda is like a bench option I really like at the moment. The reports I'm reading about him, a lot of the track watchers reckon he's playing round 1. They really like what he's doing with the ball. So he's got a great name. He's got a great name, but he's one I'm excited to have in my team and watch. He sounds like he's going to be a gem. And not even the best recruit of that year for them. It's still got Horn France as well. That's nuts. I don't know. North could be building a really strong team. Darcy, Granny Hayes, like all of those. And then in the forward line, Dunkley, DeGoey, and yep, Cogs, Kerno, Rochelle, Hollands. All right, so already talked about Rochelle. Not going to rehash that. I think McGuinness is probably a better option for now. I don't think Rochelle is going to be our F5 answers. Kerno and Cogs, definitely like those 2 as mid prices. And then DeGoey at F2. I think DeGoey is a fine option at F2, especially if he does get that mid-time we're seeing at the back end of last year. Training reports have been mixed. He's been splitting it with Lipinski, which worried me, but now it sounds like as the preseason's going on, he's getting more and more. So I don't know if this was just a fitness problem, with him having to train by himself for 3 months as part of his punishment, and it's taken him a few weeks to build that back up. And now that he's been properly cleared, they're actually integrating him into that midfield role more. That's a watch and see, but I think he's one that we're going to have to really seriously consider over a Heaney or a Butters or whatever it may be if he's getting that mid-time like we saw last year. So 12 primos, 3 mid-prices. This looks fine. Yeah, I like this team overall. There's really not too much to change for now. I think Berry, DeGoey, probably the 2 you have to watch the most, and then Rochelle probably gets moved around a little bit. But yeah, otherwise, great team. Well done. And then I think this is the last one, Ben's Boys from Ben Freeman. All right, starting down back. Defenders, as I said, you listeners, you know what you're doing, because I haven't had to complain about defenders at all. Like, really, it's just been like, are you going with 3 or are you going with 4? And I don't think there's a problem with either, and you're putting in great premium. So love all of that. In the midfield, McRae, Steele, Titch, and Neil. Yeah, that's the 4 I like. And then if you were to go mid-pricer in the midfield, that I think Rao would be my favorite at the moment. I'm a big Rao believer. I think he can return good money for 350k. I think he can get to 500, which some people don't believe in. But like, if he's back to Rao of old, and the reports so far have been that he is, then he is going to be scary good. People have forgotten about him after round 1 last year and exactly what he can be. He can be as good or better than Walsh. Like, that's where he was at after his first 4 games. Actually, better than Walsh after his first 4 games. So, yeah, I'm a big Rao believer. I think he can bounce back, but one you have to watch very heavily during the preseason. And then the rest of rookies in the midfield, all good. I think you got enough cash allocated there. That looks great. The Rucks, Grundy and McInerney. So Oscar Big O was one that I was considering at the start of the preseason. Zorko was talking him up as someone that had worked really hard over the off-season. His goal was to be the best ruck, to be the number one ruck, and he was working hard towards it. But since then, I haven't heard the same positive news that you would expect out of Big O, which has me a little bit concerned. But I think if you weren't going Grundy, Darcy, or Gawn, then he is probably the one that I prefer in that next tier over someone like a Marshall. I think the only risk here is that you really want the top two rucks. You really want them. And I think any other strategy over a period of time has proven not to be overly successful. And so the question is, like, can he either get to the number two or be close enough to number two that this pick pays off? And I'm just can't see him getting close to Darcy and Gawn at the moment. I still see him as someone that probably finishes fourth. Even someone like a Nick Nat, if he stays healthy, could end up ahead. And so that's the only thing I worry about. I'm guessing you have a pretty stacked team. Yeah, you've got like the extra mid-pricer from cutting the money here, which is something that may have to be reversed. 4, 8, 10, 12, and then 4 mid-prices. Yeah, I think this is a risk that could pay off, but one that I'm probably leaning against at the moment. In the forward line, Dunkley, Butters, yes, another different forward to talk about. Butters is one that has both been impressing and he's getting more midfield time. Now, I was thinking this was going to be an option that I could fade if he wasn't getting, 50, 60, 70% CBAs. But when he was tearing it up at the start of last year, he was only getting 30%. He wasn't getting huge numbers of CBAs. It was it was just a little bit, then sometime on the wing, then sometime, starting forward and coming onto the ball and stuff. And that's all he needed. So if he's getting like 50% CBAs, he's going to be someone that's really hard to go past. Rayner, I've talked about getting very positive reports, not someone I've been a big fan on. He's still like a wait and see and someone I'm not as confident on, but it's fine as a placeholder. And then, the rest of it looks good. Like McGuinness, F6 with Hollands on the bench is great. I know it's not possible, but if Big O was somehow Sean Darcy, then this team would be chef's kiss. But as is, it's looking pretty good, Ben. I think you've done a good job. All right, let's get into some of the Discord teams. How long been? 37 minutes. All right, 23-ish minutes to go. Let's see how many of Discord's teams we can get through. The Chase Jones enthusiast is up, a man of great culture, although he doesn't have the legend himself in his team, which is a worry. Now, I will warn ahead of time that Discord likes to get me riled up. They like to put in joke teams and joke picks, and I will be calling them out and moving on as appropriate. So I'm not taking this Rich pick seriously. I think this is to troll me. The rest of the defense looks good. I'm pretty sure he swapped like Lloyd or someone or Hall to him just to get a rise, but I'm not gonna give in to that. I'm gonna rise above. Okay, Wines and Folk. All right, this is a serious team. All right, you got me. All right, so C. Oliver has sent in Team Sexy Steel. He is good looking man. Defense is fine. Rookies are fine. Maybe you need like a Kemp or someone on the field as well, or a Sin. Oh no, you've already got Sin. So it'll be Kemp and Perez that might need to replace O'Driscoll. Who I'm still not sure if he's going to get games. He has been playing midfield in the match sim for Freo, but hasn't been one that's been outstanding so far. He's kind of been building into games, which is, as someone in his second or third year, like that's a little bit of a worry. Midfield is stacked and deep. As I kind of mentioned, I wouldn't go with the big four. I'd find which one you want to cut and use that money elsewhere. Rookies look good. Rucks look good. Forward line, like very similar to ones before. This looks good. McGuinness, if we get him at F5 and Hollands F6, I think is fine. Rayner is not one that I'd prefer. I'd have Kerno over him. Otherwise this team looks good. Well done. Tibs. This is going to be difficult with the over two screens. So defense. First crisp owner we've seen. Someone that I'm not overly keen on. just because of his role uncertainty. I know a lot of people say that he actually scores better in defense than midfield, and there are some numbers to back it up. But the most interesting research I got dropped in the Discord, which I haven't shared yet, I actually should ask for permission to share this, was looking at Crisp's scores with Howe and with Darcy Moore in the team, and Crisp's scores drop off like 10-point average when those two are in the team. They were missing for a lot of last year. They're back this year. They should be healthy, which to me says that Crisp actually really only has downside. I don't see him improving on his score, but of course you do get that durability, that 22 games out of him, which he's the most durable player in the league, and so that is quite nice. But yeah, I'm looking for value plays, and Crisp isn't it for me. In the midfield, yeah, this is fine. Like, once again, Oliver's probably not my preferred pick, but the 5 premiums and the rest of them all look good. Constable is someone I don't think is going to get games at the moment from the reports we've heard so far. But that can be swapped out to McRae, for example, if he gets games, or even go down to another one of the midfielders. And I'd put Clark on your bench over Warner. Clark from West Coast. Rucks, this is fine. We've talked about Priest at R3, nothing wrong with that. Yeah, and then this is an issue. This forward line isn't deep enough. Yeah, so Constable down to Clark probably, and then use that money in the forward line. Have you got much in the bank? 12k, not really. So yeah, someone like Curnow needs to come in here for sure, and then probably try and find a way to get McGuinness in your team as well. I hate Leon Cameron. Preach. I hate him too, bud. Single-handedly destroyed my season last year. Actual joker. All right, defense looks good. On-field rookies look good. I think Sin might have to be swapped out, but if he plays, then definitely one we want on-field. Midfield looks good. Yeah, nothing wrong with those premiums. The rookies all look good. Maybe Parker on the bench isn't the best option. Someone we probably want in the forward line instead, but otherwise fine. And I think, once again, starting, we haven't got bank here, but having 2k rookies at this point, probably not the best. You'd want to have a different placeholder. So someone like Skinner replacing Dean, Parker in the forward line, and then putting in another mid-rookie. Rucks are good. Forward line is only 1 premium. So this is still a 12 primo team, and then you've just got 3 mid-prices forward. This is okay as long as you nail the mid-price pick. So yeah, this structure's good. This team looks good. I just think it's like a couple of these fringe rookie players that need to get fixed up, and you need to figure out how you get the cash to do that. Colors. I don't know. Sorry, I'm probably butchering this, but yeah. Defenders, good. Midfielders, good. Yep, that all looks good. Rucks, good. We've talked about, like, Common can be someone else if Common doesn't get games, but yeah, that's like fine as a placeholder. Dunkley, Heaney, yep, Heaney's a good F2. Coleman, Cogs, this forward line looks sick. Have you got enough premiums? 4, and then how many in the mid? 4 in the mid. 4, 10, 12. Yeah, this is like 12 premium team, liking the mid-price selections. This is a very nice team. Sorry, there's not much more pointed feedback than that, but I think this is one of the most complete teams. Is just like personal preferences on, some of the players. But yeah, I think the structure is really nice. Bales, Fisher and Cripps. It's not just Fish and Cripps anymore. It's upgraded to Fisher. Okay. Defense is good. We've talked about Crisp already. That's the one I'd be looking at moving on. And you probably are going to need to find extra money for those more expensive defender rookies. Sin, Perez, is it Chessa? What's his name? I'm forgetting the West Coast guy's name. Oh, I've been doing this for too long, obviously. Midfield's fine. The rookies in the midfield look okay. Maybe you're like 30 or 40k short there. Like, I think you might need another one of McRae, Horne-Francis, or Hobbs, depending on who gets games, because I think they're going to be better than someone like a Roberts or a McDonald. But if McDonald has had some good reports, if he gets games early, then that is one to consider for sure. Rucks perfect, as we've talked about, and the forward line is too thin. So where's all the money gone? This is 4-5-2-1. This is what I don't like about 4-5-2-1, because the defender and the and the defense premiums you've got are really the more expensive ones. So you're just one player too short, I think, in the forward line at least. So you either need to move a defender premium out like a Crisp, or a midfield premium out like a Miller, and splash that money probably on like one of the rookies in the midfield, and then getting an extra forward premium. But otherwise, fine team. Fab. Lloyd Hall Dawson, that is a fine 3-starter combo. Coleman down back instead of the forward line. I'm guessing there's going to be some shenanigans. Burgoyne doesn't sound like one that's getting games early from the reports I've heard. Kemp and Chess is fine. McRae Steele took... Yeah, that's fine. Yep, that's fine. Oh, wow. Okay, I think when we swap over to the forward line, we're going to see a spooky bad forward line. Because... maybe? Though there's only 7 premiums so far, so there should be a fair bit of cash in the team still to go. So on premiums, you want to have 12 or 13. I don't think 11 premium teams are going to cut it this year. But it's interesting because while there's only 7 premiums so far, there's a lot spent on rookies and then Coleman as a mid-pricer. All right, let's have a look. Oh, it's another big O team. So I've said my piece on this. I'm not sure I love this as a setup at the moment, just because on top of the reasons I've already mentioned, that if anything happens to the big O, you can't easily get him to a Gawn or a Darcy. But if you have a Darcy or a Gawn and something happens, you can either sideways swap easily or downgrade quite easily. So big O is like, oh, yeah, not my favorite. But this forward line isn't scuffed. This forward line is stacked. What? 1, 2, 3, so 5. So it's a 12 premium team, but because there's an extra forward premium, it's let you get in 4 mid prices, and you've downgraded, like you save some money in the Rucks. Man, this is actually like an interesting structure. This is one that I want to play with, because there aren't many good mid-price defenders. Like Coleman is one, but like we've been putting him in our forward lines. And then Holland's on the bench is pretty nice. Rayner on that hype train. Yeah, the only other thing with this setup is Rayner, Big O, Coleman, and Neil. That is 4 Brisbane players that are either mid-prices or premiums for you, which is both going to hurt you in buy rounds and for any COVID reasons. They are all on separate lines, so if you wanted to go to 3, I think it's okay. But having 4 like this, definitely not ideal. That is where I'd be looking at swapping things around. Here's the Crusher by Scared Potter. Yep, down back, all good. 2 1 and 2K rookies, I think that needs to change. You've got the cash though to fix one of those up if you wanted to. Get in someone like a Skinner down back. Oh no. Same mistake we've seen. So yep, love the midfield, love the rookies, love the rucks, and then we get to the forward line, and this is 1 player short for mine. I think you're going to leak too many points there, so I'd be figuring out where you're going to sacrifice to make that work. Maybe I'm going to be wrong on this, and we get enough forward rookies. But having to play one of Comben, Kelly, or Parker each week, this seems like I'm getting 50 or 60 points from my F6. And that's assuming that Hollands and McGuinness are actually like good options that you like. Otherwise, this is really bad. So, yeah. I have a feeling that we're going to be playing 4 in the midfield as much as we want to play 5. Just because we need the extra help in defense and forward because our rookies. I still think that's most likely. Lemicky from Lock. Defense. Oh, yes. He's got my boy. He's got George Hewitt down back. Let's go. Coleman next to him. This is unique. Okay, so Hewitt I actually like as an option. I think if you want to look for a cheap defender, there isn't Sicily, there isn't Whitfield, or even in addition to them, George Hewitt is the one. We see midfielders moving out of Sydney to other teams for opportunity, score higher. It's just proven history of this. It's not even just the midfielders, but particularly the midfielders. When he has been playing midfield and not in that tagging role, he has many, many games. In fact, I think he might even over slightly north of 100. He is someone that I could see going 100 to 105 and being your D6 for 400k. Maybe not the best starting option, not someone that you plan your team around, but if you have the money left over at your team and you want it to spend it somewhere, then that is an option that I like if you weren't keen on, say, like a Row at 350k in the midfield or whatever it is. So yeah, I like Hewitt. I could see myself playing Hewitt at D3 or D4 this year. It's possible. I could also like back out of that big time as we continue to learn about what's exactly happening with Carlton in their midfield. And the other issue is like you do have Hewitt, Walsh, and Curnow, which I think like Walsh is one of the midfielders I'm looking at starting, and having three from the same team, it does scare me, even though kind of Curnow you'll get out of eventually. But yeah, I'm not something I really want to do. The midfield looks good. I think these are four great options, and Walsh over Titch I think is perfectly fine. Paid up in the midfield, so this looks good. I'm not sure if we get like all three of these bench options. I think that may be the downfall of this team at the moment. You might need an extra Hobbs or Erasmus, someone like that in there. Ruck's a good. Forward line is stellar. This is a great looking forward line. Yep. So this is 4 down back, 4 in the mid. That's 8. I'm including Hewitt. I think if you're selecting him as a keeper. Even if it's like a cheaper D6, he's not going to score up there with the 110s, but I think his ceiling is good enough. You're really disappointed if he only averages 90, but yeah, I think his ceiling is like a 100, 105 range, and that would be serviceable. So 4, 8, 10, this is a 13 premium team and still has Cogs, Curnow, and Coleman. Oh, and if you have someone like Skinner or De Conning on your bench in this forward line, you can actually swing in Coleman. So if Hollands ends up not being that great, like you've got some great flexibility there. He's got Skinner down back, but you could, get out of Butler, put Skinner down the front and put someone else down back. This is a nice team. It's one of the more unique teams because it's trying to go for 13 premiums, which most aren't doing. And it's doing that by going deeper in the forward line, which most teams are shying away from. They're trying to go skinnier in the forward line, just go to that one forward premium. I think 2 or 3 is what we're going to have to run. I think that's going to be optimal. So yeah, I like this team. It's unique. It's something I could see myself running a version of this. Waitering for a mate. Good. I like the puns. Defense, solid. Yep. Enough money in here on the rookies as well. Midfield. Yep. This 4 is great. Very similar to the last one we saw. Yep. And paid up on all the rookies here as well. So like lots of flexibility to move those around based on what happens with teams. Rucks are good. Forward line. This is a very good team. This is a great team. It hasn't failed any of the things that we've talked about. It has good structure. It's deep enough in the forward line. It hasn't got too many 1 or 2K rookies. Hasn't stuffed around with the rucks. This is a strong team. We like this. Oh, Eagling. Fancy Hibiscus. Now that is a name. That is a team name. Let's go. All right. So down back. So just 3 defenders skinny here. So we're going to be paying up elsewhere. If I remember, Eagling was a big fan of going deep in the midfield. So let's see if that carries through. I do have a problem with these rookies on field. I don't think we're getting all of these. And if we do, I don't think they're going to be good enough to be on-field scorers. I think we're going to have to pay up a little bit more for those on-field options like Perez, Kemp, Chesser, Sin, Hinge, and so the list goes on. Midfield. This looks fine. Once again, I wouldn't be paying up for all 4 of the big premiums for the reasons I've talked about earlier. I'm not going to rehash that. But if you're going on that path, then by all means, the rookies in the midfield look fine. Once again, I think Eagling has cheaped out a little bit here. Just having 2 of the more expensive ones with Horn, Francis, and Dacos, I don't think you're going to get away with that and not have a Hobbs, Erasmus, or Ward as well. I feel like one of those is going to be good enough that you want to start them even if it's on your bench. And I say that because Clark does seem like a legit on-field option for Eagles, mature age, already getting reps with the first team in their midfield rotation, and that's a Eagles team that has a bunch of injury-prone midfielders that you wouldn't expect to play 22. So this is a pick that I think will end up on field for a lot of us. Rucks are good. Forward line is good. This is a fine forward line. So I think the only thing that Eagling has done here is cheat a little bit by going cheap on the rookies. You've got 2 102K rookies. I think these ones are under by about 60K and the mids are under by about another 40K. So this is a team that looks like it needs about 100K extra to make things work. But otherwise, it's a 13 premium team. So that's why Eagling's done it. Gone to 13 premiums with still having 5 in the mid, which is pretty impressive, but has cheaped out on rookies to achieve it, which I don't think is going to be realistic. But if it pays off, this is a very strong guns and rookies team. Very strong. We've got 2 left and we've got 5 minutes. Gonna make it. Let's go. All right. Full of a took. Defense looking good. Man, defense has been boring. I hope something, swaps this up a little bit because I could nitpick certain defenders. I could do a video on that, on which ones I prefer at the moment and why not. But we do, I think, have to wait out the preseason before we're going to get much more information on things like Dawson's role, on Ridley and kickouts, those types of things. So, like this defense is set up. Midfield gone down to 4. I think that's perfectly fine. Got Neil in there, which I think is a great option. Mids look fine. Mids are paid up. I don't think we get McDonald, but Goda and Clark are great bench options. I think there's going to be probably another option at 117 or 120K that full of a took can afford. Is this Magic 9? Yeah, it is. G'day, Gnome. And then Rucks are fine. Dunkley, DeGoey, Rayner, Cogs. Yeah, this team looks good. Hard to fault. I think it can wait. Once again, Rayner's not my favorite pick. I'd rather have Kerno and bank the cash or use it elsewhere as required. But this team looks fine. I like it. And then finally, crispy super coaches, crispy creamers, and you better believe this man has got Jack Crisp in that backline locked and loaded. I can never talk him out of this pick, so I'm not even going to bother. Rest of the defense is fine. Rookies are good. He's got the 2 102Ks, which I don't love. With the 18.5 in the bank, you get up to 117K, but not a 123K. And I think someone like a DeConning is going to be the other rookie that we need in either the forward or defense for whoever doesn't get named at the 102K price. So I think that could be an issue. The midfield is good. McRae and Steele are the 2 that I prefer at that range. Rookies are paid up. And they're good selections. No red flags there. Rucks are good. Forward line. Another Duncan option, man. How did all these Duncan lovers, Duncan respecters, slip in? We downplayed him as an optional preseason, but people cannot quit him. Not who I'd be going. And you know what? If you want to free up money, that's where it is. It's Duncan to Ahini, DeGoey, Butters, Taron Thomas, Zach Bailey even. That's 100K that I would be using there on fixing up some of these other problems. So namely, Rochelle, I don't think is going to be a great option as we talked about. So with 100K from Duncan down to a DeGoey or someone, you could get Rochelle up to a Coleman. And then that forward line's looking really solid. Or you could, if you set on Rochelle, you could keep him and that money free up from Duncan goes into fixing up. What else needed to be fixed up? No, the rookies were good, right? Oh, one of the 102K options. No, you should have enough for that. So yeah, Duncan down to one of the 440, 450K options. Rochelle up to a Rayner or a Coleman or whichever mid-price other forward you like is the third one. And then chuck the extra money on getting a Parker, or you'll end up to a 123K rookie. Like a DeConning. And that is it. We have just made it within the hour mark. Thank you to everyone that has submitted teams. It was fun reviewing them, fun looking at structures, And if you stayed to this point in the video, thank you so much for listening. Respect it. It hasn't been like a quick video. It hasn't been the most concise video. Definitely rambled a bit in this hour format, but appreciate it nonetheless. And once again, if you do want to be involved in the next one, either jump in the Discord description, like details in the description below, or follow me on Twitter. Once again, details in the description below. Otherwise, I will see you all in the next one. Thank you very much. My throat is dying. Peace.